Unless you've been living under a Geodude, you know about Terastallize, the new mechanic that lets you cover your Pokemon in crystals like a 5-year-old with a bedazzler. Turning your Pokemon into a shiny rock changes their type, and, as we very recently found out, any Pokemon can change into any type. This is really cool for switching a Pokemon's stab and defensive profile. Alternatively, if you're already the type you're Terastallizing to, you get an increase in your stab bonus, probably the same as adaptability. People have been theorizing about what the most powerful way to use Terastallize is. Some people think that defensive Pokemon like Ferrothorn or Toxapex will be unbeatable, as they switch their type to thwart their usual wall breakers. Some think that the extra damage bonus will make Pokemon like Zacian or Calyrex Shadow Rider even more oppressively powerful. While other people believe that Terastallize will be used to make Pokemon that are powerful except for their typing have no true weaknesses, like Tyranitar. Those are all very powerful sounding. And you know what the truly fascinating thing is about Terastallize? They're all right, just not at the same time. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that Terastallize can do all these things, and more, and they're all very powerful. But I don't believe it can be all of these things at once, and that's what makes Terastallize more interesting of a mechanic to me than Dynamax was. Terastallize as a mechanic creates an extremely interesting tension because of the opportunity cost of using it. Let's compare and contrast to Dynamax. Dynamax always did 3 things: provide a survivability increase damage, and provide secondary benefits through weather control, terrain control, and/or stat boosts and drops. Now, of course, each time you Dynamaxed, which 1 or 2 of these things you valued more would change, but you always did it for all 3 benefits. And with the exception of some Pokemon that wanted to use spread moves, there was no downside to Dynamaxing. This is not the case with Terastallize, and that's why I'm so excited for it. There's so many different things a person can do with Terastallize, but you only get to pick 1 or 2 at a time. Let's look at an example. Let's say you have a Suicune against your opponent's Amoonguss and Incineroar. You want to click Scald to get rid of the Incineroar, but your opponent could just Rage Powder. Normally you'd be screwed, but hold on, your Suicune is Terra-type Grass, so you have a way around it. Maybe you should Terastallize your Suicune so it'll ignore Powder moves and hit your opponent's Incineroar. In a vacuum, this sounds like an easy thing to do, but let's zoom out a little. Let's say you know your opponent has a Corviknight in the back, and by Terastallizing your Suicune, you may be exposing yourself to a stab, super effective flying type attack from the Corviknight after you take out the Incineroar. So you need to make sure that if you Terastallize, the rest of your team can handle the Corviknight. Another example. Suppose you want to Terastallize your Landorus, so that your Sludge Bomb will one-shot your opponent's Rillaboom. You need to be careful to consider the much weaker defensive profile your Landorus is going to have for the rest of the game, and that you're giving up your stab on your Earth powers. It's a lot to consider, and almost no early game Terastallize will be without downside. It's extremely difficult to use every advantage Terastallize can give you at once. Are you excited to see how top players leverage Terastallize? Let me know down below.